Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Kapow Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to kapowprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads. No distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Everybody well?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Very hot. Very hot. Got to have the curtains closed to stay cool, but
Yeah. Am I the only one that's off work at the moment now? We've broken up.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I won't mention that anymore. Okay.
Do you go back earlier though?
Sorry?
Do you go back earlier?
Well, yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what time you go back, but yes. So we go back on the 28th of August.
Okay, fair.
Not so jealous then.
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I think the first topic that we're doing this morning is something about AI complaints, isn't it?
Yes. So Test Magazine, or TES, as I always insist on saying, has published an article about saying schools face unsustainable rise in AI-generated complaints. Parents' use of AI in making complaints means schools are having to deal with complex letters loaded with references to the law, and then goes on to say that those references to the law are often irrelevant or completely incorrect. So not only are schools having to deal with this increase in parental complaints, there's been a bunch in the news recently about vexatious complaints increasing and possibly changing complaints procedures for schools, as well as offset, etc. But now, because of AI making things up, quite literally, parents are able to input their ideas, get AI to write this extremely complicated, long, detailed version, which then has to be unpicked. And then I suppose the parents would be putting things in like refer to legal or like where school is breaking law. And then the AIs are coming up with things that are just not applicable or not accurate. So then schools, in addition to having this increased number of complaints, are having to unpick these complicated AI written letters and then having to deal with legal threats in various forms that are not real, true, accurate, founded, etc. So it's adding immense time and effort to what schools are having to put in to deal with the complaints coming from parents. We've got Lawrence Foley, CEO of Future Academy, saying that we've now reached a point where it's completely unsustainable. For example, last week we had a permanent exclusion hearing for a pupil, and the parent had sent a 45-page letter, which included some tells of AI generation, polite, and was loaded with legalistic language. Schools are getting 5 or 6 of these a week. So it's not a one-off. It's becoming kind of a regular problem for a lot of schools, and it's adding to the already increased problem of parental complaints and how to deal with that. So I mean the general view here is that it's getting completely out of hand. And to me, I would like to see, I know this will never happen and it's impossible, but I would love to see like some sort of graph that shows like the parents who use AI to write their complaints and the students who use AI to do all their schoolwork. And I would like to see if those match up, because I bet they do. In
I think it's quite likely. I think it's quite likely. And you know, with AI, if you generate anything with AI, you are supposed to read it over afterwards to make sure that it is what you wanted to say, it's what you just to make sure that it's correct. I think one of the things is commas or something are put in spurious places by AI, and that's one of the sort of really obvious indicators. So people are obviously just firing this stuff off, printing it off, sending it into the school, and it says at the end that they're sort of circumventing the normal school procedures for complaints as well. So instead of going to the school initially and saying this has happened, what are we going to do? Instead, they're generating these huge letters, sending them into the schools, into higher authorities to have them looked at as well. And so schools don't even have a chance sometimes to answer. And like you said, if it's full of legal speak, I don't know whether all schools would have legally trained professionals within them. I'm assuming academy chains do, but in general, a smaller school might not. So how would you can see why it would be really frightening to receive something like that.
And you'd have to, for those smaller schools, they would have to contact their legal team or their lawyer, which everyone has, and that costs money. That costs hours. That it's depleting every resource that schools have over something that is just rubbish. It's just foolishness, and people can come up with it instantaneously by clicking a button.
I think that's it. I mean, yes, the schools do have. Every school has a legal advisor of some sort, whether that's something they've contracted into or not. But you only will access that when you absolutely have to, because it's a expensive business. I think there are two things, aren't there, for me going on? There's the overall problem, which has been around now for really sort of three or so years, which is the exponential increase in the number of complaints that are being received by schools, as well as not just formal complaints, but also the the communications from parents, whether in person or in writing. And then there's the AI element to it, which is making things even worse still. So, you've got two things happening simultaneously. Now, the first one was completely unsustainable for me too. I'm no different to any other school head. Every school head or leader that I talk to is just constantly battling this sort of thing. And most of the complaints that are made are by the very people who actually have the least to complain about. Now, that's not true of everybody, but it is true of a lot. They're the people who are actually most, or their children are most responsible for having done something wrong. And then they have weaponized the complaint system as a means of fighting the school and trying to claim in some fashion that the school are actually to blame and it's not their child, or, heaven forbid, them as the parent that's responsible. So it's not being used in the way that complaints traditionally, say in the commercial sector, were a way of pointing out that poor service has been given, or something's wrong with the product. These are complaints which are simply a response to a situation where schools are doing their job and then they don't like it, and they're being held, parents are being held to account for that, insofar as they then have to have their child at home if they're suspended or whatever it might be. And of course they don't like that, so then they use the complaint system inappropriately to fight back. And that, I think, has got to change, because if it doesn't change, we're going to see increasing numbers of people who, we've already got large numbers leaving, and we'll have even more leaving, and that is a very bad thing, and doesn't serve the interests of children and young people, never mind, the community as a whole.
No, I think you're right. And it says at the bottom as well that Dr. Foley would like to see the complaint system changed. So it's necessary that you demonstrate that you've been through the initial complaints process first to stop these things coming in at the top level, at the highest sort of escalation possible. But how that works, I don't know, because that's an in-school thing, or it's a government-led initiative where complaints have to be, and then you've got a universal system and schools don't have flexibility within that. So I think schools will have to find out what their obligations are in terms of complaints to make sure they're watertight before they issue any changes. But I do think it's the case that if your initial complaint is straight to the top, that is stressful for the school. It often comes in without people expecting it, I would imagine, as well. So, those small incidents that you might not even have thought of, a lot of parents used to say, I know my rights, but now they don't even need to know their rights. They just stick it into AI and ask it, is this okay?
Well, they have a
Okay, sorry, can I just
sorry,
say,
yeah, please come on, yeah.
So for a start, they don't actually have human rights, on in terms of law. There are no human rights that children have. We've never passed it through Parliament, so therefore it doesn't exist in the same way. Okay, so there's that. So they come in with this stuff, and it's like, well, you don't even have it in the first instance, and then when it comes down to the actual law and what we're allowed to do, well, we're allowed to do certain things, but the point is that parents themselves should be on our side. And if you have parents on your side, I agree that it's about bringing parents on your side, but the problem is that you can't always bring them all. And what we can't do is go to the lowest common denominator.
No, you absolutely can't. And sometimes in fact, invariably, the right thing to do is to put consequences in for a child who's done the wrong thing. But actually what's happening then is that the parents don't like that because, of course, they feel as though they're being in some way held to account for it. So they're then fighting back. And a lot of the complaints are about also, I should add, SEND, special educational needs and disabilities. And of course, we know that the system in schools is pretty much fundamentally not fit for purpose. Government admits that. Everybody working in the sector more or less admits that. So schools get the blame for things that aren't their fault because the SEND system can't deliver what parents in some cases are suggesting it might. And in some cases, those parents themselves have SEND or they have mental health problems, and their complaints are an extension of that and their own, problems in life. And schools are just a convenient battering ram to vent whatever anger they've got.
Can I speak again then? Basically, I agree with you. However, I do see where they're coming from, which is that we haven't quite gone there, we haven't quite done the right thing. But I think the problem is that the idea of inclusion is so vast that we don't think that sometimes children can't be included within a classroom. They can't be included within this particular sphere. And so we say that sphere is wrong, but it's right for most children. So therefore we go along with it, right? Okay, so what do? Do we change everything and make everything wrong for everybody? Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Or do we make it right for some children and right for other children in different spheres? And we have to say that our idea of inclusion right now is not right whatsoever, and we're not helping anybody. And so when they come in with SEND, fine, but there's also the thing where there is to be fair, there is an idea that you can get SEND for your child and you can get more benefits, and that does not help, because as soon as you do that, unless there's a good reason, and there usually is, but sometimes there isn't, you can just get your child SEND, so then you get more benefits and therefore you get more money and you live a better life, which I get, but your child does not get better.
No, I mean, what you're highlighting, I think correctly, Tarjinder, in my view, is the connectivity between this problem and a number of other problems, some of which we'll talk about later in the program today. They have they're different sides of the same coin to a degree, you know, and one part has to be fixed in order for another part to work as it should do. So, you know, in a multiplicity of ways, it's difficult to unpick. Just if I may, I'm going to have a look at our a word from our sponsors. So, have you subscribed to our weekly newsletter yet? The TTR newsletter. Now, it's called Soundbites and Insights, and it's delivered to 10,000 educators a week. It contains a curated selection of 4 standout teacher talk radio shows from the week, exclusive discounts and exclusive offers from our sponsors. So if you are interested in that, just sign up on our website at ttrradio.org/newsletter, and you can get on there and subscribe to that excellent newsletter. John Catt, this show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. And you can use the code JCTTR2425 and get 20% off your order. And then the Chalk and Talk podcast. If you're looking for another great education podcast, then check out Chalk and Talk with Anna Stocky. Anna is a passionate advocate for evidence-based math education for students of all ages. On her podcast, she talks about everything from effective teaching methods and how-to guides for teaching maths facts to tips for evaluating research shows claims. She brings on top-notch guests, educators, researchers, and policymakers, and discusses issues that directly impact teachers and students. Chalk and Talk is for anyone that's interested in education. Find it wherever you go to get your podcasts. So, sorry, back to then the main discussions here. So, anybody want to say anything more about the whole question of complaints and AI?
I think only that maybe we need to, if this is going to be an ongoing issue, I guess fight fire with fire. Maybe there needs to be an AI system set up that can review those letters to be able to assess what is relevant, what is not relevant, and make those complaints shorter and more manageable for the school, taking out all the difficult detail that may be an option that could help.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea, and I actually think that will be part of the answer. That ironically, we could get a situation where the AI bot is saying one thing in complaint, and then the AI bot is saying another thing, and they're talking to one another, and the rest of us can actually get on with the real world and doing what we do in schools.
But I don't think that's the answer, if I'm honest. I still think that you should always have control over this. Like, so when it comes to AI, everyone keeps saying that it's going to like take control, do whatever, but it can only be as good as us. Like, it can only be as good as a human being. So when I've used AI, I found that it's wanting sometimes because it doesn't quite do what I want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a Google search, right? So if you know your answer or you know where you're trying to get to, then you can kind of search through it and it can help you to do what you want to do. But unless you know, it can't do what you want it to do. So therefore, we shouldn't just go, well, AI will do this, AI will do this, and we'll just like step back, because actually we can't do that. We're human beings, it's AI, and AI, as far as I'm concerned, and I know other people disagree with me, and that's fine, it cannot take over because it cannot be us.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think it's just one of those things where we've got to find a solution in the short term because of the issues that it's causing for schools, for teachers, if they're a named person in that complaint, for example, to get a 45-page letter full of legal terminology and reference to laws. That must be horrible.
Sorry, can I just, okay, but can I just like intervene there? Okay,
Yeah.
so how many times does AI actually get it right? How many times? Because there have been times when I've like gone to AI and it's got it completely wrong. Okay, so we're assuming that the 45-page letter is completely right. And I know that
Oh, no,
we
we're
don't
not.
have the time
Oh,
and
we're
the
not.
money sometimes.
We are not assuming
like,
that.
we don't have it.
Yeah,
But,
I would
but you see what I'm
personally,
saying? Like,
yeah, I would rather print out the 45-page letter, red pen it, circle everything, and just write AI in the margin and send it on back. Submit your own work, please, and then we can have a conversation. That's what I would like to do.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's the time. It's
because
the sheer
quite
volume
frankly,
of
the
time.
reality is, okay, but it's sheer volume of time, but we're human beings, and therefore we've got to like get some control here over the situation where actually you can't just say AI is saying this and therefore we have to like put up with it. Actually, is AI actually correct? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it can do things faster than we can do things. Like, I admit it, I asked for a synonym, it's there, but sometimes it can't quite get there. And it can't quite get there because it's not human. And we still have to maintain that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, isn't there? There's a lot to consider. Is it time for us to move on to our next topic? Is that okay? Okay.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, if everybody's okay with that. So I'll kick off with this one, which is about suspensions and exclusions. So we were greeted this week in some publications with phrases like chaos in the classroom and the inevitable hyperbole that goes with these sorts of things. So in short, the government publishes statistics for suspensions and exclusions, and they do it at the end of an academic year. But of course, they're talking about the previous academic year. So the statistics have been published for 2023-24. And based on those statistics, there has been a 21% increase in suspensions in schools, 9 out of 10 of which are in secondary schools. And then there has been a 16% increase in permanent exclusions. So obviously this is something that indicates something else, which is that schools have had far greater need to suspend or exclude young people. And therefore, we cue in then a huge debate about whether schools are being over punitive, which is one line of argument, or whether in fact schools are simply discharging their duty to ensure that schools are, pleasant, safe places for young people where they can learn, where they can be reasonably protected from the hatred and bullying that other students might bring upon them. And therefore, what this indicates is not that schools are being in any way over punitive, but in fact that society has taken a turn in terms of antisocial behaviour for the worst, and schools are having to cope with that, probably without the resources or the tools at their disposal. So what do people think about the statistics and the headlines, and what do they think is going on here?
Well, I don't think schools suspend students without good reason. I don't think that they're able to. They have to work within the parameters of the rules, the expectations. And if the suspensions, the numbers are rising, it's because the numbers of behavioural incidents in schools is rising by the same amount, maybe even more, because I think schools probably are aware, you know, we can't just keep suspending. And so I think they're probably trying to hold on as much as they can. But like you said, and it says quite clearly in the article that we read, you know, that schools have a duty to provide a safe environment for children to learn in, and when that is not safe, or even when it is continually disrupted, that is not a learning environment. So I back schools all the way to be able to do this. And I'm a counsellor, I work on the council, I go to our children's meetings, and on the council they will talk about suspensions and permanent exclusions as a bad thing, and we're working with schools to try and help them keep children in the classroom. And that's really admirable, but I think we're coming from two different ends. And when you're actually there and when you actually see it, you recognise there is no alternative but to remove that child from the classroom, from the school, for a period of time. I think the question is, how many suspensions lead to permanent exclusions? I think that would be really interesting data to see.
Well, yes, I mean, I think, sorry, carry on. Yes. Tarjinder, is it you?
No, it's me. I think that would be a really interesting question, because every time that we hear about this, it always comes down to you've excluded somebody, therefore they've got permanently excluded. But to be permanently excluded is so hard. I don't think people realise how hard it is to be permanently excluded. Like, you must do things that are really, really, really bad, to the point as a child, like particularly in primary, you know, like, which is where I'm from. But in primary, you must do things that are so difficult for us to handle ever, that it must get you into prison when you're later, right? Okay, and there's no question about it. There's just no question. We don't put you in prison, but we do exclude you, because we have to exclude now. And we still try and give that child a chance. We still try and give them like some sort of opportunity out there, like somewhere else apart from us. But we can't keep doing this, right? Okay, this doesn't work. So fine, it doesn't work for that little period of time, but we're still giving children opportunities as best as we can. I think that what's misunderstood is, like, when we permanently exclude, we're not sending them to prison directly. If they go to prison, it's because they're already in a process outside the school, outside the system, that we can't control, and we can't control everything. I'm sorry, you can't be there 24/7 the entire time.
Ray, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm so tired of hearing about this prison pipeline. Do you know what makes more of a difference than exclusions? Literacy. If young people can't read, if they are functionally illiterate, they're more likely to go to prison, and that has a higher impact than whether or not they've ever been suspended or excluded statistically. So why are we yammering on about this so much? There's a bigger issue. There's a bigger factor. There are a lot of bigger factors, actually.
You're almost saying what I think, which is that when they talk about it's a pipeline to prison, it's almost saying the teachers are pushing children onto that pathway.
And then they wonder why we're defensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not. It's, you know, I'm a parent, I've worked in education, and I see it from all angles. And if a child is on a pathway to prison, the school is incidental to that. It's one of many stories. We can't be the end point. We can't be the terminal point.
So,
but let's be honest. What you're saying, Ray, is completely correct. Like, if you cannot read, you cannot correct yourself in certain ways. Like, you cannot make things different. Like, there's this thing about reading that is just not there if you can't read. And I know that because my own dad can't read, right? Okay, so I feel really passionately about it, because he can't read, he can't do certain things, and he can do others. And I'm not saying he's like some sort of criminal, like, that's not what's happening. He's been a perfectly decent person his entire life. But the difference between me and him is so huge sometimes, because I can read and he can't. And if you can't read, if you can't get down different paths sometimes, then what do you do? What do you do?
I mean, I think,
and I don't think people. Sorry, I just don't think people understand how hard that is. Do you know what I mean? How hard it is if you cannot read a single piece of word, like you can't read a single word, you can't read, you can't understand other people. Like, where do you go with this? Like, it's so true. So therefore, our effort should be down there, like making people read.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm reminded of a political slogan from about 20 odd years ago. In a sense, what we need to do is be both tough on poor behaviour, but also tough on the causes of poor behaviour. Now, I think everybody accepts, when they really get down to it, that both those things are necessary. Schools cannot, and teachers cannot in the classroom, tolerate students who disrupt and destroy lessons, and they cannot tolerate young people who persistently bully and make the lives of other young people a misery. Those things are not acceptable. They're not okay. We all know, as we do with the prison population, that literacy levels are extremely low, that people who are in prison are far more likely to have experienced poverty or to have experienced trauma in early life. It doesn't mean that what they did was right, or we should in some way excuse them what they did for what they did. But what it does mean is that the root causes of the problem do need addressing, and we can't just rely on people's goodwill in every case to make it right. So there are two elements to it. But just one other thing, if I may, just throw in, because I think it's been missed in the media, and I tried to point to it at the start of this topic, was that I actually think there's some evidence, and the FFT lab, the Fisher Family Trust lab, have reported this, that we're talking about something that's already peaked. Because if you look at the data that's coming through for this year, this academic year, there seems to have been a tailing off or a plateauing of suspensions. It's not yet fed through into the official government stats because they haven't had time to process that stuff. But what does seem to be happening is that the sharp increases were rooted in the immediate post-pandemic period, when we know things were in a pretty desperate state of affairs. But this last year, while there hasn't been a dramatic fall off in suspensions, there has been a slowing down. And in some year groups, FFT report, maybe year 10 and 11, suspensions may have decreased slightly. So,
but sorry, we still don't have the answer to the actual question, which is, why is there the same trauma between different children, and some of them cope well and some of them cope badly? Okay, so if we were genuinely wanting the question, like an answer to the question, then we would say that we know, like, 'cause we've been there, like we've all stood in front of a classroom, we've all had children who have had really difficult circumstances. So why do some of them cope and some of them don't? And why do we not try and understand the difference so we can help those who struggle most to cope better, rather than go down this other pipeline, which I understand that they're talking about the pipeline and all the rest of it. I get why they're coming from, but at the same time, why don't we try and understand the difference? Because they truly loved those children. They would try and understand. They wouldn't just sit there and just go, well, there's a difference, and we'll just pretend those children don't exist. The ones who cope don't exist. Well, they do exist. So why don't we understand why they exist?
Well, I mean, good parenting is good parenting, isn't it? Whether
but
just to answer your point, though, Tarjinder, what I'm saying is, I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is that a parent can be a good parent regardless of socioeconomic circumstances, what part of the country they're from, or so on. But obviously,
sorry, I am going to have to try and interrupt this, because even when
just let me finish the point, Tarjinder, and then please come back in. I was just about to say, but obviously, when you're looking at big figures and people are extrapolating from statistics of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, then they just see overall trends, and that hides the individual case studies or the individual circumstances which have led in each case to the situation as it is. Tarjinder?
Yeah, so sorry, I like you cut out. Okay, so I keep thinking about one particular circumstance. So there's this child, don't have to explain like where it was from or anything like that. Obviously, like have to always keep that confidential. But she was probably like the one who was in the most distress ever. Like her mother was like trying to kill herself. She herself was being encouraged to do the same thing, right? She was one of the nicest, quietest children in my class ever, right? So where does she come from? Like, how do you deal with her? Well, you deal with her with kindness and respect, and you just do whatever you do with like any other human being. But that's what I find so hard when it comes down to all this stuff about, like, you know, getting rid of children, you know, excluding them. I'm like, yeah, I know we do it sometimes. I know we have to do that, but you have them too. So how do we cope with both? Like, 'cause you can't just ignore them. You can't just leave them to one side. It can't just be that the person who shouts the loudest gets the most.
No, of course not. No. I mean, I think that like most things that are reported in the media, the reports don't in any way reflect the nuance, reflect the reality on the ground. They have headlines, and headlines are competing with other topics for column space, and it's easier to make dramatic, inflammatory statements and get clicks and get people reading your site than it is to actually analyze things in the depth that we are starting to do here. Did anybody else want to add anything to this, the thoughts on this topic before we move on?
Well, I did actually, because I think, I mean, Tarjinder's absolutely right. Some of these things, some of these behaviours can be driven by, you know, trauma, by issues in the home, by problems that children face. But what's happening is, I think, where we've lost a lot of their discipline and the tools to establish discipline in schools, what you're finding is that other children are jumping on board. So those children who might have sat quietly because they didn't want to get detentions are now finding, well, it doesn't matter because I just tell my mum I'm at an after school club, or, you know, maybe mum doesn't care anymore because a lot of parents are working, they don't even know. And so what there is an issue where those behaviours that were exhibited by the children who may have had the most issues, and they may have led to schools saying, well, what is wrong? What is going on to make, you know, this child behave like this? Well, now you've got loads of kids, you know, jumping on with it and joining in and egging it on very openly. And of course, I think that makes it really difficult. And I think that's some of the problem. And actually, what I think you might find is that sometimes some of those suspensions are more intolerant for those kids than they would be for the children who we know have additional needs or issues, because you've got more tolerance to that, because you've got more understanding. But when, you know, Bertie starts messing around and you know that he's, you know, everything's fine for him, you're more likely to try and nip that in the bud. So, you know, again, it'd be interesting to see those kind of things played out in those statistics. You know, we saw that we had some you know, 90% of Key Stage 4, year 9 was the highest, which is absolutely obvious, isn't it? Because year 9 is the age, particularly for boys, where there's sort of, you know, changes and everything that's going on in their bodies makes it very hard for them to regulate their behaviour. But, you know, I think the biggest concern is probably the primary school end of things, because as Tarjinder, I think, said, it tends to be very extreme types of behaviours that are being exhibited by primary school children. I don't know whether I've not seen behaviours in secondary school that are probably any different from what used to happen. It's just there's more of it and they can push it further than they used to be able to. But primary schools, there's a lot of violence that's coming through. And when that comes through to the secondary schools, when those children are 12 and 13, bigger than the teachers, if that's not sorted, we could have some real problems. And I don't know what the answers are for that.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Capel Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to capelprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads, no distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
No, that is a very good point, and it is a particularly disturbing trend because it when young children of 5, 6, 7 are finding themselves suspended and permanently less suited, then it doesn't bode well for the future, does it?
Yeah.
I'll just go back.
Here's the thing, okay, so why does this happen? Why does we already know that young children, right? Okay, so the youngest children who are the most violent are like when they're 2 or 3, and you stop it. So you have this thing called the terrible twos, and you have to stop it as a parent. That is your job, because otherwise it'll never. I don't think it will stop, quite frankly. We know there are jobs that parents have to do, or you have to do as parents, you have to do as aunts and uncles. You just go in and you just do what you have to do, right? And I don't think we do that well enough before they go to school. And then they go to school, and then we're blaming teachers and we're blaming leaders, we're blaming everybody else. But I don't understand why we can't. How can we get back to a system, genuinely, how can we get back to a system that I had, which is basically my teacher and my parents are just in sync? I'd love that for most children, the vast majority. That'd be so lovely. Just genuinely, would that not be a nice thing to do? And how can we get back to it?
Yeah, well, that's it. But that gets into areas of the breakdown in trust in society and the social contract, and the fact that there seems to be a growing sense of alienation in the minds of some people from all manner of public services, not just schools, but also, in terms of their views on local council services, in terms of their views on hospitals and healthcare, in terms of their views on many other aspects of
but we've got to start somewhere, though, Carl. We've got to start somewhere. Okay.
Well, so we're in school, so we can start there.
Okay, so we had a perfectly reasonable system, right? And that perfectly reasonable system, even though my parent was an immigrant, she didn't really speak the language, she could still communicate. But trust me, I got shit sometimes. I was a naughty child occasionally. So occasionally I used to get told off. And even though my parent did not understand the exact language that was being spoken back to her, she would still communicate back with my teachers and be like, that's fine. You're coming home.
Apologies
sorry
for the colourful language, but your passion was there. Can I just briefly, Tarjinder, I just want to go to our ads, if I may. Have you subscribed to our weekly newsletter yet? I just want to it's important for people to know about this. It's called Sound Bites and Insights, and it's delivered to 10,000 educators a week. It contains a curated selection of 4 standout TTR shows from the week, exclusive discounts and exclusive offers from our sponsors. So sign up today on our website at ttrradio.org/newsletter. And then a word from our sponsors, John Catt. This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Just use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Great. There was a third topic that we said that we'd cover. Who was going to lead on that?
Did we decide that? No.
Well, who wants to lead on that? It's about girls.
I'm quite happy to. But I'd like to take it perhaps wider than just the singular school that has the issue. So there was a school that has decided that they're going to ban skirts for girls and boys, I guess, if they want to wear them. And so all students will now wear trousers. And I have a real problem with this because we're taking away choice. And I don't think that's very fair. We know children come in all different shapes and sizes. I'm a real short person, so trousers never really worked for me. So that would, it would be really difficult. Parents are going to have to start sewing things up. Whereas a skirt, you just, as long as you get the waist size right, the rest follows. So I would like to open it wider, though, in terms of not only have we got schools taking that choice away, we've got government taking choice away from schools now as well, with their rules about the number of logoed items that children or that schools are allowed to expect children to have. And I have a real problem with this because I think it's 3 in primary school and 4 in secondary schools. And whilst I understand that their reasoning is because of the expense, most schools, my daughter's just left school now, so I've got all 3 out of it, but I'm still on the parents group. They have uniform swaps all the time, so people can, giving it away for free, a year's worth of uniform sometimes where people haven't cleared out. So I just think this level of interference in what children wear, beyond the fact that there's an expectation to wear uniform, but I think the level of interference is starting to become far too much now, and choice is being taken away. There are some children who just want to wear a skirt or trousers. They might want to even alternate, and they can't have that opportunity if a school is now saying, I didn't read the article, I'm not going to lie, so I don't know why the school's decided to do that. So if anyone wants to add to it, then I would be fascinated to know what their reasoning is.
Right, Ray, what do you think?
Sorry, was my face suggesting I had opinions?
Maybe.
The main criticism seems to have been that the girls are rolling their skirts up. So the female students did that thing that teenage girls do, and they're rolling them at the waist, and so they were too short according to dress code. So rather than actually enforcing the uniform policy or the dress code that currently exists, when members of the public would complain about teenage girls' skirt length, which is just infinitely creepy in my mind, the school said, well, let's just ban skirts. Let's add more control and remove more options or remove more choice. And instead of actually, making them follow the rules that already exist, let's just take away their option and make them wear trousers they're probably not comfortable in.
So you're not
in 30-degree heat.
Well, in Michaela, apparently what they have is they have a line. They've got this gold line, and where the line is because if they rolled it up or not, because the gold line exists right around the skirt. So just have uniform. Sorry, I don't understand why you can't have a uniform in a secondary school where even if people are poorer than others, we still afford it. We still got our uniform. I don't understand why. What we're doing wrong there. So I think the vast majority of schools, the vast majority of places will just help out with uniform, whether it's primary or secondary. If you don't have the money, they will come along and they will go, well, we'll help pay for it. That's what schools do. That's literally what trusts do. That's what people do. So I don't get this whole nonsense about uniform, because actually it does help you to belong. The only way to get around this is if you turn around and say we're going to do this instead.
Yeah, one of the things that I did when I first became head was to get around this problem, because it's an age-old problem. There is nothing new about this whatsoever, and there is a to be fair, there is a difficulty with when you get into the question of skirt length. You get into the question of who measures it and whose view it is on the length, and ludicrous.
The nuns, Carl, the nuns should do it.
I know. But to get round it all, I said, right, I introduced the long skirt. So basically what happens in my school is that you have a choice as a girl or a boy, if you want it, not that anybody does, but you have a choice. You either wear the long skirt, which actually goes down to their ankles, or you wear the trousers. Now, the majority of girls choose to wear the long skirt. They choose to wear it. They don't choose to wear trousers. And it makes no odds to me whatsoever which choice they make, but they choose to wear the skirt rather than the trousers. Some girls choose to wear the trousers, but most don't. But at least they have the choice. So I think this school, I understand why this school have done this. I think it is problematic. It does create difficulties, and applying any rule that has a degree of judgment is always more problematic than when you've got a clear, this is how it is. But I think possibly they have gone about it in a way that, well, shall we say, it's going to raise emotional reactions or opinions, and most schools would rather not do that. They'd rather not get into that debate, and I would at least give them a suggestion that they put an option in for longer skirts, because actually then people can choose, and if they choose not to wear a longer skirt, then fine, they wear trousers, but at least they've had a choice.
I love the fact that you're stricter than I am, Carl. Like, seriously, like, you've gone all the way like that. So that it's just down there, regardless of either option. Like, so what you gonna do? Like, I just love it. I think it's brilliant. Go for it.
I don't see it as strict. I see it as simply giving people clear options. And I completely get why. And I'm not a woman, so obviously I can't say for sure.
No, but if you're going to do it, like you say, like, look, are you going to measure skirts to here? Are you going to measure how high it is, or are you just going to go ahead and do it? Like, no, that's a brilliant option. Like, seriously, I approve. I do. I think it's brilliant.
I'm heartened by that approval.
Do you know what I find weird though? And this is okay. So there's a lot of weather variation in this country. Okay. It's been 30 degrees where I am the past couple days. In winter, it's freezing, and you see these students come to school wearing the exact same uniform every single day, whether it's 10 below or like there'll be a 40-degree difference and they're wearing the exact same clothing. That is not normal or healthy or sane. So why don't we have and maybe families need to be given uniform vouchers like the families in this school in this article are, to purchase more options, but I feel like there should be more options rather than fewer, if only because weather changes.
But Ray, you can't stop. Like, there are children who you can't stop. I'm sorry. There's things you can't stop in society, right? So one thing you can't stop is like children who like rock up like with their big coats and like in the summer, you just like take it off, and no matter how much you say it, and then they're there. I agree. Like in the winter, you like put your coat on, and they're like, no, I'm not cold. Like, what do you do? Like, genuinely, what do you do? Like, I know.
Yeah, but some of them are sensible. There are some fools, and there are some sensible children who would actually want to be physically comfortable across a 40-degree range, and they don't have the choice.
I do apologize.
Lucy's just making a second exit.
I know. But the problem is, like, children will be children, Ray. Like, you can't just, cannot get rid of like the stupidity entirely. I agree. Like, we try our best, and as long as we try our best, come on, like, let's do say things, as in put your coat on, like, do this, do that. But in the end, there'll be kids who will just be like, yeah, no, I don't care. Like, it's 0 degrees and I don't want to wear my coat, and that will be like 20 degrees or 40 degrees, and they do want to wear their coat. And I suppose in the end, you can't physically take it off them, can you?
No, but you can provide more options for students that actually don't want to sweat or don't want to freeze. And
which I agree. If they don't have the options, we should provide the options. But when they have the options, they still do stupid things.
They still don't. I know.
But you know what? My children's school.
Sorry, Lucy. Yeah.
No, I do apologise. But my children's school, they have, for the summer term, they go to a polo shirt for the summer. And then they go and they can wear it with a jumper. They did try for a year to put it with a blazer, and it looked terrible, and everyone just moaned. So they've returned back to wearing it with a jumper. And then they go back in September, and regardless of the temperature, they go back in their, shirt and tie and blazer. And it's a really good idea, because in other schools, like you say, they wear the same thing year round. So I think that's a really good idea. But again, going back to this government idea now that children should only have a certain number of uniform items, that's going to cause a problem. They won't be able to do that anymore because, I mean, their polo shirts are logoed. I guess parents will have to look for a burgundy non-logoed one in Asda or whatever to match their expectations. But I'm really concerned about this. I'm really concerned about this overreach into uniform. Like Tarjinder said, uniform gives a sense of belonging. It instills a sense of pride as well. And when those children put on their logoed, school-coloured PE tops to go and play a match against another school and things, they feel like they're part of something. And I'm really cross about this idea that we've got to strip that out so that parents can buy anything from anywhere.
Can I just say, it's not just about like children, it's about me, like as a person sometimes, like because obviously like I do work for a trust, and every time I put the logo on, I know that I belong to that place. Do you know what I mean? Like there is a sense of belonging that you don't get without it. And we're not trying to make it so expensive that you can never get it. Like we have literal like mountains of like, like I suppose like the uniform that other children had. We always like provide it for them if they don't have it. I think we go way over and above now compared to like when I was a child. When if I was poor, like my parents still had to find it from somewhere, like the money from somewhere, like, and so we're not doing that to people. So why are we saying that we're doing it still when we're not doing it? Do you see what I mean? It's like it feels weird that we're saying something that's just not true.
Yeah, well, one of the go on, Carl.
No, please, Lucy, go on.
Well, I was going to say one of the things that the school I worked in and my children's school years and years ago did was a kilted skirt. So in my school, which adopted it much later, was because the girls were coming in and they were buying these elastic skirts that literally, just covered what was necessary. And when they were told you can't wear that, well, that's a skirt my mum's bought me, and it was causing real problems because then you had other children whose parents were more strict and saying you're not wearing one of those. You had kids coming in and changing skirts, and it was just awful. And so they brought in a kilted skirt that was a uniform item. Most kids need one for Key Stage 3 and another one for Key Stage 4 because they're adjustable around the waist, far more so than actually the ones that you'd buy in a supermarket or a cheaper shop. But also, the year 7s come in and those skirts are down around their mid calves, and by the time they get to the end of year 9, they're above their knees, but they make them last. And again, they're uniform items that then parents sell on. I had loads of secondhand uniform for my children, not necessarily because I couldn't afford it, but just because why would you not take something on that that doesn't cost you something? And so there's been a real circulation, and I just feel really aggrieved that we're going to lose some of that sense of identity and some of those tools that were being used to try and control some of those issues where these girls literally, I mean, skirts where if we had stairs in our school, then, the boys would have been walking up behind them and seeing everything. You can't have that. So I feel really passionately about schools being able to choose their uniforms, and I do feel passionately this school should be allowed to put trousers in for everyone. I just think it's really unfair on girls who don't want to wear trousers and
No, and by the way, I don't want to wear trousers, by the way. This is a really funny thing to say, but I hit 30 and then I was just like, I'm not wearing trousers anymore. I'm gonna wear dresses, and like all I've ever worn is like dresses from the age of 30, which sounds bizarre, but that's all I wanted to wear. But at the same time, you should be allowed to like wear what you like to a point, but not more than that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
within the rules.
Our dress code.
Sorry, I think the government is what they're doing is we understand, I think, why they're doing it, and they're doing it. I mean, focus groups time and again told them when parents were asked what was the number one cost pressure that they felt with their child being in particularly secondary school, but sometimes primary as well, was the cost of uniform. They said that again and again. So government thinking, we need to respond to public opinion, and show that we're on the side of people who are financially, in more challenging circumstances. They should make it easier for those parents by restricting the propensity of some schools to put heavily, quite expensive branded items into the uniform. However, if government had maybe spent a little bit more time and this is easy to say, but talking to school leaders, what they would have found is that the situation isn't quite the way that parents present it, or some parents present it. And one of the problems I would like to raise is that actually, when you reduce the amount of uniform, and if then young people start buying their own their own clothes, as it were, not uniform prescribed clothes, it actually becomes more expensive for parents, not less. Because if you're wearing your own choice of clothes, you don't feel that you can wear the same clothes every day. You've got to keep changing them. And particularly,
Precisely.
dare I say, girls of a certain age, boys sometimes too, but certainly girls of a certain age will feel obliged to then keep changing their outfits and keep their outfits up to date with latest fashions and so on, which is actually very expensive. So,
sorry, can I just say, it would be worse. You're right, it would be worse for like both boys and girls, girls in particular, but boys as well. As in they'd feel like they'd have to like keep up with like social media is such a big thing, like compared to like when I was a child. Okay, so then they would have to carry on keeping up with social media over and over and over again. And even I get hit with it, right? And I don't like it particularly sometimes. Sometimes I'm just like, yeah, whatever, like you've said this, but you're still susceptible. So why would you not be more susceptible if you are younger at this point? And if it was expensive back then, it's going to be even more expensive now for you to keep updating your like you say, your outfits. Every day, something different. Every day, you've got to be like, what celebrity? Like, this is what's going to happen to your children. And so, therefore, we say uniform, you come in, but also there's a sense of belonging to that school that you can't have if you're just being an individualist.
Well, it's a leveler. For me, uniform is a leveler. What it does is it makes everybody feel like they are not the same in terms of their personality, but they are starting from the same position, and they will not be judged by the wealth or the financial advantages of their family, but by who they are. So, in other words, everybody will dress in a similar way or the same way, and therefore there's no judgment or detriment for the fact that that's what you've got to wear. So it's a leveler, and it makes life easier and less complicated for young people. And in that sense, I think it's actually, it's a good thing for making schools feel like communities and equal communities rather than places where everybody competes. Anybody want to add anything?
Just think about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs used to wear the same outfit every day, right? Why? Because he didn't want to think about it. He wanted to think about what he was actually doing instead of what he was wearing. And actually, what you're wearing is not always that important. Who you are is more important than what you wear.
Well, I feel sorry for female members of staff, because as a male member of staff, I wear the same thing every day, and nobody really says anything about that. But in the case of female members of staff, they often feel a little bit, obliged to change. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not qualified to judge, but I would say probably that seems the case.
Well,
yeah, I think
it depends on who you are.
Right. Well, yeah, but in the summer, as a man, you still get up and you put your suit on. I keep thinking this, but now I'm thinking, oh gosh, it's too hot for tights. People are going to think, why are you wearing tights in this hot weather? But they wouldn't think of a bloke, why are you wearing a suit in this hot weather? So I have to oblige and I have to wear, summer style clothes. And it's hard. I find it really hard work anyway.
All I care about is how comfortable I'm going to be. That's all I care about. Am I going to be hot in this? Am I going to be cold in this? That is legit. But I can spend half an hour trying to figure out what layers to wear so I can be comfortable in any location in the building. But that's it. But I think a lot of people do feel the other pressures as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I think that then has taken us to the end of today's show. So I would just like to thank everybody and thank everybody that listens to this podcast, and wish everybody a good weekend, rest of their weekend. And those of us who have broken up will be feeling very smug. And those of us that haven't broken up will be feeling, utterly exhausted. So all I can say is the end is nigh. Okay.
Take care.
Right. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.